Okay, guys, just give us 1 minute. We're just waiting for everyone to show up. All right. I think we can go ahead and start. Anyone else who comes late, I'll just let them in. But just for those of you who have come already or who are here right now, I want to make sure and get you out in time to be able to go to your classes on time. All right. So really quickly, the topic that we're going to be talking about is career hacks. And so what that means is now during your university time when you are looking for positions or even when you graduate and you're going into your career, there are certain things or certain shortcuts, and I say shortcuts with quotations because not shortcuts in the sense of um, things that you can do that would be done carelessly, but shortcuts as in things you can do that would be able to cut down the amount of time. Because sometimes when you're applying to jobs, it's more about quantity when it comes to the actual process of applying to positions. So in that case, I decided to name it career hacks just because hashtag is a thing now that everyone talks about. But then also besides that, hacking is something that I want to say recently, within the past year or two, found out. But when it comes to like things like kitchen things and so forth, or cooking things. So in this case now, we're going to be talking about little shortcuts and things you can do when you're applying to jobs or applying to um, even in your career, things you can put in place so that it would make things a lot easier and a lot faster. And also you'd be able to get whether your application out there a lot faster or just make things a lot easier for you as well. And if anyone has a question, just put it in the chat. Um, just put it in the chat and I'll be able to answer it. We do have someone who is monitoring it. So just so you guys know, the session will be interactive. So in this case, I know many of you don't have microphones because you are in the library probably or in a space that might be too loud. If you do have a question or you do want to answer my question, just put it in the chat. Don't be afraid to ask questions. So don't wait for me to tell you that. Don't wait for me. Sorry. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't wait for me to ask you a question or you don't have to wait till the end. You can just type the question in the chat. That's totally fine. Or unmute yourself. Just be respectful to each other. I'm the speaker. So if someone is asking a question, just allow them to finish. And in my case too, just make sure that your mics are muted. And also when others are speaking, give them your full attention. So if someone is asking a question, again, allow them to finish. Don't cut anyone off, just allow them to finish first and then you'll have your turn. But besides that, I do really well with interaction, including in the chat. So you could type your stuff in there if you like, any questions you have or anything like that. Okay, so the first thing is job versus career. So obviously the answer is here, but usually I would ask people, what would you say is the difference between a job and a career? So because the answer is here on this slide, I will just say it. So a lot of times when you think of a job, it's more short term. So it's usually not long term. Sometimes they tend to have a smaller pay scale. So a lot of jobs, a lot of times tend to be minimum wage. So now minimum wage, I don't remember exactly how much it is now, but probably $14, $15 range. So usually jobs fall into that, and they tend to be the ones that are front-facing type positions. They may not need much educational prep. So for example, if you're applying to, in this case, Starbucks, you most likely don't need a degree, or not most likely, you don't need a degree to work at Starbucks. You probably do to work like whether it be in their head office or in a higher capacity, like if you are working in finance, Starbucks does have people working in their finance departments and their IT departments. And in that case, yes. But to work in the frontline positions, you don't need educational prep. And then usually with a job, you tend to pursue it when you're younger. So you tend to pursue jobs more like in your teenage years or in your university years. Sometimes as an adult too, you may be looking for something that's temporary, just to make ends meet. Those are usually what falls under the category of jobs. But when you think of careers, careers are usually longer term. So, doctors, lawyers, so forth. Usually you need tertiary education for a career. So usually, employment counselors, professors, and even like IT, admin positions, a lot of times you do need certificates or degrees in order to do those. And then usually you enter into your career after high school or as an adult, usually. Now, I keep using the words usually because there are times that people do choose what we consider jobs as careers. So what I may consider as a job, so back when I was in university, I worked in hotels. And I actually worked with people who also consider the front desk at the hotel their career as well, for whatever reason. Whereas for me, it was just a job that I had to be able to pay for university while I work into getting to my career, which I'm in now. So it depends. However, the other flip side, I haven't heard of a lot of people getting into like becoming doctors as a job. I haven't heard that before. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but maybe it does. So, usually career type jobs tend to be the doctors, the lawyers, the advisors, the counselors, and so forth. But there are jobs that could be careers, the same way there are some careers for some people that could be jobs. So it just depends on the context. So when it comes to your career, though, I usually say your career is more like a long distance car trip as opposed to a direct flight. So when you are taking those long distance trips out there in the car or long distance, like why are words leaving me? When you go on, yeah, on a road trip. When you go on a road trip, a lot of times that's how your career works. So, you may decide, okay, I'm going from Toronto to Manhattan. And so you've made a decision, okay, I'm going to leave at 8 a.m. It usually takes like 8, 9 hours to get to Manhattan, including getting through the border and all that. And so you go through that whole process of getting to Manhattan. You might have times that you stop for breaks, you stop for bathroom breaks, you may see things along the way that's interesting. So I don't know, you may see a sign for like some sort of attraction. So then you think, oh, I'll stop there. Then maybe there's another town that has something interesting. And then also, but the thing about road trips is sometimes they tend to be a little bit more flexible. So you can stop as you want. You can, if someone gets sick, you can pull over. If you decide, you know what, I'm really tired, you can decide to spend a night at a hotel as compared to a direct flight where you get on a plane and you get there. Now, obviously, there are things that you have to take into consideration, like delays, reroutes, and all that with direct flights, but we're not talking about that. Pretend direct flights are just from A to B, as opposed to a road trip that can be swervy all over the place. You may spend the night somewhere else, or you can get a flat tire, or whatever the case may be. That's literally how a career is. It's very interesting when people say, I know exactly what I want to do, when I want to do it, and when I will be in that position. The reality is sometimes life happens. So I always tell students, don't feel bad at the fact that you don't know where you're going. Don't feel bad at the fact that you don't know 100% what career you're getting into, because there are also those people who they think they know what they want to do, and then when they get into it they change their mind, and that's totally okay. That's usually how a career is. Now, does that mean that there isn't that like 5% of people who know exactly what they want to do, they go through school for it, and then they get into it, and then they're exactly what they want to be? Yeah, there are those groups of people, but that's not the majority. So usually it's a road trip, and that's totally okay. All right. So that being said, your career journey is yours. No one person will have the same journey as you. So I can tell you all I want about my journey, but the reality is my journey most likely will not be your journey. So going back to what I had said about the 5% of people who know exactly what they want to do and how they're going to do it and when they're going to be there, and it may work out for them, that's great. That's their journey. But then you may have a longer journey or you may have a shorter journey. Everyone's journey is different. And then most important is advice is just that, advice. So right now I am giving my own advice as far as my experience, my personal experience, my educational experience, as well as my experience over the how many years I have been counseling and as an advisor. But the reality is you will hear different input from different people. Take bits and pieces from all the advice, and no one knows or can control your journey. So I can give you all the advice I want today with these career hacks, but the reality is there may be bits and pieces that you may be able to use, but there may be bits and pieces that in the future may not be relevant to your journey anymore, and that's okay. Right. So I may tell you one thing, and then you might go home and tell your roommate, and your roommate might say, no, she's crazy. That's not how things work. Like, you do it the other way. And if you decide to go with the way the roommate says, then do that. It's totally fine, right? Your journey is your journey, right? So you listen to the advice, you listen to this, you listen to other people, but then you decide for yourself what you are going to use. And also you're going to realize different advice will work and other advice probably wouldn't, right? It just depends. Okay, so I thought this picture was interesting. Has anyone ever tried this before? You can just put in the chat yes or no. Okay, a lot of no's. Good, because I have a feeling if you tried it, it probably would cause a fire. This is something that I saw on TikTok some time ago about like certain hacks that you could use in the kitchen, and apparently this is a really good alternative to roasting marshmallows as opposed to, I don't know, campfires. So you could do this in the summertime. Not in the summertime, do it in the wintertime as opposed to in the summertime where you can be outside and use a fire and all that. Please don't do this. But anyways, when I think of hacking, I think of this, right? An easier way to be able to use simpler methods to be able to do something. In this case, it might be a little more dangerous. I can promise you the hacks that I give you are not going to be dangerous. But I thought it would be interesting to be able to, sorry, my lights are on a timer. But I thought it would be interesting to to put this as an example. But I'm glad all of you have said, no, you have not tried this. Do not try this. This does not look safe. All right, so the main job search components we're going to go over: resumes, cover letters, interviews, networking, and job searching. Okay, now obviously there are a lot of other components when it comes to working in general, but these are the 5 that I'm going to cover. All right, so resumes. All right, real quick. Resumes, color or no color? Put it in the chat really quickly what you think. Should your resume be colorful? Should it be black and white? I'm seeing color, black and white. It depends. It depends. It depends. Many it depends. Okay. All right. So mostly yes, color. Some people saying it depends. Okay. All right. So let me give the specific scenario. Now I'm using McDonald's. Not that I know any of you aspire to work at McDonald's, which don't knock McDonald's. I'm sure it's a great place to work. But I'll give a perfect example, the McDonald's example. So when you think of McDonald's, I'm going to ask a question again, put it in the chat. When you think of McDonald's, what do you think of? Or think if McDonald's were to invest in anything at their stores, what is it that they're investing into? What is it that they're going to have the state of the art of? What? Like, what do they have that is going to be totally, like, what is it that they invest in? What is it that you could walk into McDonald's and be like, oh, wow, they really spent money on this thing? Chairs and tables, sure. But that's not the answer I'm looking for. Yes, okay. Okay, someone said it. So the cooking machinery. So think of it this way, right? So McDonald's, what do they provide? Some of your answers are funny, but sure, I guess seating is something they, or their drink machine, sure. But yes, okay, so their drink machine, I think, would fall into there. But what do they provide? They provide food. right? So it's very possible that the things that they especially invest into is, okay, fine, the restaurant, right? So the cooking machinery, they probably have the state-of-the-art fryers. They probably have like the best cooktops, the best utensils, the best, most efficient drink machines, sure, all of that, right? So that is usually what I could see them really putting a lot of their money into. Maybe the tables and the chairs, the decors, all that stuff, right? But a lot of times when you go into restaurants, now I've never worked at McDonald's, but I have worked for food establishments before. And a lot of times what happens is the things that are big and shiny and you could tell that are really good quality tends to be more the things that is connected to what they produce. So in McDonald's case, it would be their food stuff, like the kind of food they purchase, the cookware they use. But the reality is, in the back, is very possible that when it comes to office space in the restaurant, not a lot of investment probably is not made into that because they're not an office company, they're a food company. So in the food places that I've worked at, many times, and it's been more than once, every single one, the admin area, which is maybe like a little room in the back. I remember one place it was actually like the room that actually had the water heaters in it, or like a storage closet. That's where they did their admin when it comes to HR and the putting in of hours for shifts and things like that on a little computer. So they probably would have like, a little computer, probably like Windows 1990 something, if that still exists. And so many times when you apply to like say McDonald's and when you send your resume to them, it's very possible that their little computer is probably not the state of the art computer because their investment is into their restaurant. So they have this little computer there, and you decide to send this beautiful resume. I remember one time years ago when I was counseling for some high school students, I remember there was this one student who used a template, and it was a red template. And when you think about it, you're like, oh, a red resume. But I tell you, it was beautiful. It was so professional, and for some reason, the red worked. But the reality is, if that student had decided to apply to McDonald's, probably what would happen is that McDonald's probably would not have the software to one, open the template because the template is something that's a little bit newer. And two, if it is that the process is to print the resumes in order for them to go over them, they may print it, but the reality is they may not have the color red. So then what happens is when they print it, the black and white probably tries to substitute for the red. So it probably will come out so light that you probably wouldn't be able to read it. Do you really think that they're going to take the time to try and figure out a way to be able to get your resume unless you have something that's specific to what they want or like is niche to what they want? Probably not. Probably what's going to happen is they're going to print all the resumes, and then when they see yours that's not printed great, can't really figure out what your name is, can't really figure out what your contact information is, what's going to happen is they're going to toss it and they're going to move on to the other one. So the ones that we're able to print are the ones that are more through Microsoft Word, right? That's easier for them. So my answer to the resumes, whether it be color, no color, I say it depends on where you are applying to. Think, this place I'm applying to, are they the kind of place that has the software needed to be able to open this beautiful template? Or are they the kind of place that probably wouldn't have that? So for me, if I'm applying to U of T is known for their technology. Of course, I probably would do it there. But am I applying to be a manager at a restaurant? Probably wouldn't do the beautiful, colorful resume. Probably would stick with white page, black letters for that reason, right? Or if you are applying to IT, if you're applying to anything that's computer-based, then yes, they probably do have the technology where having resumes that have the color and um, that are able to open the newest software and all that, then yes, it can work. But if it is that their thing is not necessarily technology, it's very possible they wouldn't be able to do the higher technology type stuff. So just black and white, Microsoft Word, white page, black word, white page, black words, and that's it, right? So pick your poison in that case. Well, no, this wouldn't be a pick your poison situation. Pick your situation in this case, or pick what works best for you in this case. But I would say if I were ever applying to McDonald's, Microsoft Word, and that's it, black and white. All right. So take a look at this resume. All right. So tell me things that you see wrong with this, and just type it in the chat real quick. So real quick, real quick. Okay. So the cake border. The cake border is a bit much. Okay. Okay. Okay, so I'll go through everything at the end. But so far you guys are getting everything. So far you guys are getting quite a bit. All right, so let's start from the beginning. All right, the cake border. So the cake border is not bad, but if you're applying to a position in IT, or you're applying to a counseling position, or even you're applying to a position as a student in a work study position at U of T, what would a cake border have to do with anything? Unless you're applying to a bakery, and still does that look professional, right? So that's the first thing you should think of. Next thing is the picture. So I do know that in some countries, having a picture on your resume is a thing. I do know as well, I think LinkedIn has an option where you can kind of print a resume off of your profile, off of the information based on your profile, and it does put your picture on it. I'm seeing that a little bit more now, not a lot, but I am seeing it a little bit more. However, the standard practice is you do not put pictures on your resume. Can anyone say why you don't put a picture on your resume? Exactly, right? So a big reason is because of discrimination. So a lot of times, anything on your resume that gives any sort of descriptor of your physical features, many times is not something that's okay. Now, there are times that if you're applying to like a firefighter position, a policeman position, a position where you have to be physical, there probably would be a place on an application where you have to answer certain questions, because only certain people of certain physiques could do those kind of jobs, right? So in that case, that's for another time in that case. But on your resume, usually you don't put anything. And still, even an application, say for to become a firefighter, they're not going to ask what the color of your skin is. What does that have to do with being able to lift heavy objects, right? However, they may ask how tall you are, because you probably have to reach for certain equipment, right? So anything physical features wise, leave it off. So a picture of yourself, and especially not this kind of picture, not a good idea, right? And also in this case, Tesla, she has her age, her height, her weight, her eye color, all things you keep off of your resume. Okay. Now, when it comes to the name, so Tesla Williams, Tesla goes by Shorty Williams, doesn't sound appropriate at all. Really not professional at all, right? And then so the email address, right? So this is the issue with the email address, besides the fact that it doesn't sound professional. The issue with the email address is a lot of times you want to have an email that probably mimics your name, just so that there is no errors to be made. So for me, my name, my email at U of T, Cherryl-Lyn Olamuyiwa, my name, right? So if it is that anyone decides to send me an email for whatever reason, I don't know, they're typing it and they're trying to figure out what's type, and it's like quicker if it is that it can be obvious it's your name. That could be one reason. Or if it's a situation where, I don't know, an email needs to be sent, it just makes things easier, right? For it to be your name as opposed to like first name, first initial, last name, something like that. And also we already know it's you, right? Like it's kind of proof that it's you that they're sending it to. So it's a lot better and more professional to have your name, because I know sometimes people just have random things, and a lot of times it's hard to keep track of, especially when you want to send someone an email. Okay, so perfect example is sometimes if I've worked with a student, there are times that I have to send them an email a couple days later. And I don't know, maybe I won't have my notebook, maybe I won't have access to a folder that has your email in it or the system that has your emails, but I know your first and last name, and I could just type it in, first name dot last name at mail.utoronto.com, right? Yeah, .com. And so I already know. Or I could just type in the beginnings of your name and your email shows up because that's the email, right? So it just makes things a lot easier. When you go to the phone number, and I think one of you guys had actually mentioned that, realize that there is no brackets and no dash. Yes, no brackets and no dash. And the problem with that is it just looks like a jumbled mess. So imagine having to call people one after the other, and all these people have not fixed their phone number in such a way that it's easy to read so that you can call really quickly. All these are little things that are reasons why people would just not call you for an interview, believe it or not, just because it's easier, right? So the brackets and the dash. But there is one thing that is missing from especially the top part that's really important too, the address. Okay, we have a question. Okay, so this person is asking, so pretty much what the person is asking is, sometimes they don't want to put their full address or they wouldn't feel comfortable putting their full address. But besides that, sometimes for discrimination purposes, a person doesn't want to put their full address because I guess maybe because it might be a lower income place or something like that. If that's the case, then just put Toronto, Ontario, and or your postal code, and that's totally fine. Totally fine. That's totally fine. I am a fan of putting your full address. And the reason is because I want to make sure an employer has as many ways as possible to contact me. Not that I expect an employer to come to my house, but what if there's that one employer who decides to mail me something, right? It's just one less thing for them to have to figure out another way to contact me by to get that. Or also, it also helps with the beginning of the HR process. So that's one less thing they have to try and ask me about because it's already on my resume. My full address is there. All right, so for the sake of time, let's go quickly. So skills. So in the skills, so someone else said this. The person says I a lot. I can stand for a long time. People say I am friendly. I am good. I am good with computers. I like to converse with customers, right? Nothing's wrong with these. But first of all, the way that it's written doesn't sound very professional. And the fact that you're saying I is a problem. Many times using the letter I is not something that's used in the resume, but it is used in a cover letter. That is something that we will go over in a little bit. Work experience. So the work experience part is not the greatest. There's no uniformity because May is common letter. Jude is capital letter. It's kind of squished together. You worked in a Costco cafeteria. That's great. But where? Was it in Toronto? Was it in Vancouver? Was it in the US? Right? It's good to say where you have worked at. Tiny's Hardware. Where is Tiny's Hardware? Right? Now, for students who are international students, if you have experience in other countries, that's totally fine. You can put that as well. So if it's Mumbai, India, totally fine, right? Work as a cashier, blah, blah. So we already talked about the I part. And then you go down, education, right? So education, Bayside, junior, and high school, Abbott Elementary. You guys got that? Okay. Yeah. So Bayside Junior and high school, Albert Elementary, right? And so again, everything's sentences, even in the work experience, it's almost a paragraph. It's a lot of words. And then I can provide you references when you ask for them, right? So just in general, it does give off a little bit of a lazy kind of feel to it. It doesn't feel professional. They're not really using a lot of adjectives. It doesn't say things that you're good at. Even for the skills, it says you can. Well, you can, as opposed to you are good at or you're excellent at, right? Two totally different things. So you can, but no, I want someone who is excellent at doing something as opposed to someone who can, right? So let us look at it as an example of what it really should look like, right? So in this case, Tesla Williams has Tesla's address. Look at the email, tesla.williams, right? The call me shorty can be used for your friends. When it comes to applying to positions, just first up, last name. Now, the good thing is that students, when you're applying to positions, work study on campus positions, the UFT email is really good because it has your name in it already. So just use that. Well, you will be using that if you're applying to work study positions. And then you have your phone number, skills. So remember how the skills were, I can stand for a long time. People say I'm friendly, blah, blah, blah. Skills, able to stand while working for long periods of time, known to be cordial, especially with coworkers, clients, and customers. Proficient in Microsoft Office, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, excellent customer service skills. Okay, work experience. So the work experience, you always go most recent to least recent. So Tiny's Hardware, Etobicoke, Ontario. Okay, when you did it. And then so with Tiny's Hardware. So see, they had Tiny's Hardware at the bottom when that's the most present one. So you worked as a cashier. However, in this case, what did you do as a cashier? So assisted customers, provided information, performed light cleaning, but also keep in mind, see how it says to present, because this person is given the impression like they still work there. Therefore, they're still doing it. So assists, provides, performs. Then cafeteria worker, Costco, Toronto, Ontario, right? Otherwise, it could be Oshawa, Ontario, Barrie, Ontario, London, Ontario, right? So we know it's in Toronto. You have experience here. June 2019 to May 2021, right? But realize because it's 2021, performed, took, assisted, right? So past tense because of the fact that it's a position you did before. Education. Now, I tend to differ on this education part. The education here is at the bottom. So University of Toronto, great, whatever, whatever. I'm a fan of putting the education at the top, either before skills or after skills. And the reason is because a lot of times that lets the employer know whether or not you need part-time work, or it lets them know right away when you graduate whether or not you have a degree right away, right? So I'm not a fan of putting education lashes because education is important. It's very important for them to see whether you're in school or whether you have a degree. So I know a lot of people or a lot of templates they put it at the bottom. I'm not a fan of it. Here it is, but I prefer that to be at the top. That's just my preference. Again, remember, advice is advice. You take advice as you see fit. All right, so here, so for example, under the skills, so talking about adjectives, right, that you can use. So proficient, excellent, actually those are the other places that adjectives were used here, I guess. Okay, so proficient, excellent. So the thing about it is a lot of times when you are using adjectives in a resume, you don't want to be repeating yourself. So you're probably proficient in Microsoft Office, as well as probably proficient at customer service skills, or proficient at giving good customer service, but you don't want to use proficient twice. So if the case is you can't think of any more adjectives to use in your resume, just go to thesaurus.com. All right. So for example, the word proficient, accomplished, efficient, trained in, versed, experienced, conversant, qualified. With the word educated, acquainted with, skills, scholarly, knowledgeable, and literate, ample preparation, coached, manage, direct, lead, maintain, handle, supervise, train, oversee, right? So when in doubt, go to thesaurus.com. If it is you want to say that you're good at something, but you don't want to use good at, proficient at more than once, or not, you don't want to, you shouldn't. Go to thesaurus.com, put the word proficient in, and then you would be able to see other examples of other adjectives that you can use. And that's like a really quick way to be able to find it, as opposed to sitting and trying to think it up yourself. Use the internet, use thesaurus.com. All right, cover letters. All right, so think of your cover letter as a cake, a 3-layer cake. Easy as that. Introduction, why you're best for the job, conclusion, and that's it. Okay, so let's look at an example. So introduction. So in the introduction, for example, introduce yourself, mention the name and code if there is one that you're applying to, and then you can also mention that there is a resume attached. Easy as that, right? To the point. So, for example, to whom it may concern, my name is Brian Luttrell. Points if you guys know who Brian Luttrell is. Put it in the chat. My name is Brian Luttrell, and I would like to apply for the position of cashier, posting 10586 MCD at your establishment. I have also attached my resume for your review. Easy as that. Then you have the middle layer, right? So why you're the best for the job. Do you have any paid experience in the same type of role? If so, how much? What skills do you have that can be transferred to this role? Do you have any formal training that this role can benefit from? So SPAR-Serve training, customer service training. Do you have CPR and first aid training? Do you have any real world experience? Any transferable skills? So worked at a front desk spa, operated computer programs that calculates numbers for school assignments, anything that's like computer based that you can also put in there for a computer based job. Generalized skills that can be used in any job. So these are all things that you talk about, which pretty much in a nutshell is talking about why you're the best for the role. All right, so I'm not going to read this because you guys will have access to this, but pretty much it's all of these put into here, right? So I currently possess 5 years experience. You worked at Ardeen, you worked at Tim Hortons. What'd you do at Ardeen? How long you worked there? What'd you do at Tim Hortons? How long you worked there? Now, a question I get all the time is, but all of this is in my resume. Yeah, that's great, but you're getting to elaborate on it here. I'm talking about most recently, you worked at Milestones. All of these helped you to gain skills in the position, blah, blah, blah. Through your last position, you were able to get SmartServe certified as well as customer service certification. You're known as a team player. You can stand for long periods. You're able to work with diverse customers and employees. Being able to assist customers, proficient in Microsoft Office, use it for school assignments, as well as to complete work tasks. So remember, we talked about generalized skills that you can use at any jobs. Even things that you've done for school, you can take into the job. So you're letting them know this. Now, this position, I'm more tailored it to if you're applying for a position while at school. So like a frontline position, a position that doesn't really need more career experience. But then when you get into your career, that's when it would be talking about more specific to the career, maybe talk about specifically what positions you've had before. So me as a career counselor, I would talk about all my career counselor experience and talk about, because I had more than enough, talk about how I can bring it into the new role as opposed to talking about the times that I worked in hotels, right? But for you guys, in this case, this is more of like if you're looking for a summer job or after school job. All right, and conclusion, any personality traits that can be an asset in the position you're applying to, thank them for the opportunity, mention that you look forward to hearing from them. So besides my technical skills, you're known as a natural leader, who takes initiative. Your teachers talk about you, employers surprised you, who supervised you, talk about you and the fact that you complete tasks. You're someone who enjoys being around people because that's something that's really important in jobs. You have a great personality, you develop good relationships, and so forth and so forth and so forth. Okay? And then in the end, it should look like this, right? Now, also, you can put at the top the date, your address, your name, your address, the date, just so that they know it's most recent. But this is more about the context, about what should be in the letter. Great. Interviews. How many do we have? Interviews. What's the next one? Job search process. Okay. Okay. Just looking at the time. All right. Interviews. All right. So anyone here? Well, you guys will all say yes. So I'm not going to ask you to put this in the chat. But when it comes to the interview process, think of it. So Worst Cooks in America is a show I really enjoy. I really like it. It's a really good show. But anyways, I was thinking that a really good analogy would be just cooking shows, right? Or cooking competitions. So think of a position that you would want to apply for and think of it as like a competition, right? So there is a competition for the best cookies, right? And so you are doing a competition for the best cookies in all of Ontario, and you decide that you want to take part in this competition. So it's going to be you up against 49 other people. So 50 people have all put in their application by baking their version of what they think is the best cookies and providing it to the judges, would be the interviewers. And so when they provide it to the judges, in the end, the person who has the best cookies are the ones who would be able to win, right? And essentially get the job. But look at it this way. Imagine there are 50 people who are called into the interview, right? So we're not talking about the people who applied. So maybe there are 1,500 people who applied and they were able to bring it down to 50 people that they're interested in to come and actually show them proof of the cookies that they can make that they say are the best. So you go into this competition, and when you go into it, you're like, oh, mine are the best. Yes, mine are the best. All the people say they're the best. So I just need to show these people that I'm the best. So the judges get all 50 plated in front of them, and they all look really nice, right? And then numbers 1 through 5, they try it and they're like, oh yeah, number 4 was the best so far, really, really good. But then they get to number 7 and they're like, oh, number 7 was terrible. Number 7 accidentally put salt instead of sugar and then realized it was disgusting. So they remembered they don't like number 7, but they like number 4. They get to number 24. By number 24, they say, okay, we really like number 4. We really like number 16. And we know we don't like number 7, right? So 4, 16 don't like number 7. But then by the time they get to 41, everybody's tasting the same, right? So remember, number 7 was terrible. Was it 7 I said? I think 7. 7. Number 7 was terrible. Number 12 was terrible, maybe. So they remember 7, they remember 12. But besides that, everybody else was really good. However, everybody else was good, right? So it's a hard decision to make because everybody is so good except for number 7 and number 12. Number 7 and 12 are out. They're like, but everybody else were really good. How are they going to choose who is going to win? Because they all tasted good except for those 2, right? Well, in this case, they have to choose a winner. They don't have a choice. They can't choose 48 people to win. So what ends up happening? What ends up happening is it's possible that the person who wins is the person who did something a little bit different and a little bit had them in awe, maybe. So for example, the person who win probably, instead of using chocolate chip, use caramel chips, because that's something that people probably, well, of course, caramel chips and cookies is a thing, but pretend that that's something that no one ever thought to do. And this one person thought, you know what, I am going to put caramel chips in these cookies and it's going to be amazing, because I know nobody else thought about that, because everybody else probably went with the boring chocolate chips and M&Ms, but this person went with caramel chips. Or think of like sea salt caramel is a thing now. So someone decided that instead of regular caramel, they decided to sprinkle a little bit of salt, not like number 7 or number 4 or whoever it was that was terrible, not like that person who accidentally used salt instead of sugar. What they do is they like sprinkle just the right amount of salt so they have the salty sweet, right? So maybe that person is the person who wins. Or the person who wins is the person who, when they presented to the judges, the tea towel that was in the bowl that the cookies were in reminded one of the judges about the fact that his grandmother used to make the best cookies ever, and they would always serve it in this one tea towel. So it brought back such great memories, and they're like, that's it, this is who wins. A lot of times that's how interviews work, right? The fact that you have been called into an interview means that you have proven that there is something that you feel like, or proves that there's something that they feel like you have and you can definitely do. Like you already have something they want. You already have something that they're like, we could hire this person. But so do 49 other people from their resumes. right? So then this is the place where what will happen now is you have to prove that you are the so-called best. But how are you the best when 48 other people, because remember, 2 people were horrible, so they already know they don't want them. How are you the best when 47 other people are also really good, right? So what I always suggest to people is what you do is you do something that makes you stand out, right? Perfect example. When I remember when I was in school, when I would apply for jobs and I would go to interviews, one question I got every single time, most times, is how do you keep yourself organized? Now that's one of those questions where I could, give the politically correct answer, I keep myself organized by using a calendar and making sure that I don't know, I keep myself organized by using the Outlook calendar that is provided in my email, right? Easy answer, true answer, but, and yes, it's a good answer. But the reality is, what would probably stick more is rather than telling them the right answer, I could show them the right answer. So me, I'm the kind of person who I do everything on my phone. I budget on my phone. All my bills are on my calendar on my phone. I do every single thing on my phone. So not most, but all of the interviews that have asked that question, I always say, I would love to tell you, but I will show you. And so I pull my phone out and I open my calendar and they see in real time, because this is also proof that I actually do this, they see in real time all of my bills on my calendar, all that are color coded, all that have the check mark next to it because they've been paid, and they actually see for themselves as proof that yes, I can give the right answer, but I'm also proving that this is something that is part of me, right? And many of those jobs I've gotten just for that reason, right? So what I would say is, what can you do to stand out? What can you do in an interview that will set you apart from the rest? Because the reality is there's no way that a half-hour or 1-hour interview can truly show an employer the kind of worker you are. It's just the reality, right? There's no way that an hour can actually give them the full, for sure, that you are the right person for the job. But what you can do is you can do something that makes you stand out. So if you're a teacher and you're going into an interview, take your lessons with you. Take the syllabi that you've put together with you. Take actual arts and crafts that you have done with the students and bring it in with you, right? As opposed to just answering the question saying, yes, well, some of the arts and crafts I have done, right? Because what it's doing is it's actually proving that you have done it as opposed to you just saying that you have done it, right? So easy as that, right? So examples of ways that you could stand out: research the company for unusual, interesting facts, right? So before you go, research a company. Talking about McDonald's, right? What do we know McDonald's for? Burgers and fries. But do you know about Ronald McDonald House, right? So Ronald McDonald House in the US especially is a place that they provide for the parents of children who are in the hospital to be able to stay while their children are being provided with care at hospitals. I do think it exists in Canada too, but I'm not sure what they do here. See, I should have Googled it, right? But interesting things, right? Scotiabank, if you're going for an interview at Scotiabank, what do you know about the Scotiabank half marathon? What do you know about places that they have that employers have maybe donated to or that had fundraised for, right? These are the kind of things that make you stand out, because one question that usually comes on an interview is, tell me about what you know about this company, right? And so it's very easy to say, well, McDonald's is a company that's very well known because of its burgers and fries and it's better than Burger King. That is great. But it's also even greater if you talk about, well, I know about Ronald McDonald House and all of the work that you do and this charity organization that you have, and you raise money for parents of children who are sick, blah, blah, blah. That would make you look so much better as opposed to just talking about what we all know about the company. Is there anything extra that you can take to the interview with you? So preschool teachers, when I talked about printing out the syllabi, do you have things that you could bring, right? Can you prove things? Can you show things, especially when it comes to the actual job itself, do you have anything that you can bring with you to show them the work that you have done as proof? Answer questions by showing examples. I already talked about that. So the organized question, right? So pull out your phone, show your calendar, and so forth. All right, job search process. We are almost done. All right, so the job search process, do you know what that job really is? So I have students all the time who come to me and they're like, I want to be a consultant. That's great. What is it? Well, consulting. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean? Do you have the consulting skill? Are you okay with talking to people? Like, what does that mean, right? A lot of times people use a lot of terms just because they sound really fancy. And yes, I want to go into consulting, but the reality is you're scared to talk to people, right? So they're really and truly right. Do you know what jobs entail? So consulting, international relations, business analyst, project manager. Those are the four that I hear all the time, but it's also the four that I realize people don't 100% know exactly what those positions entail, right? So when it comes to searching for jobs or careers, right? These are examples. So anyways, before I say that, going back to this slide, when it comes to knowing what the job is, right? Really do the research about what a job entails before you really choose that job. So if you really know what it entails, great, right? But don't just use it. Don't just say it just because it sounds nice. Don't just go towards that career just because it sounds like a good career. Actually do the research of what it entails. All right, so steps to follow job search for career, starting before you graduate. Keywords, starting before you graduate, right? All right, so here are some steps you can do. Choose 10 companies you would like to work for, right? So just 10, right? Now, that doesn't mean that you necessarily 100% are going to stick with this once you graduate, but it's a good starting point. Also, it will change, right? So as time goes on, you learn more about companies. You're probably going to be like, I don't know how I feel about this one anymore. Switch them out as time goes on. That's totally fine, but start with 10. Look at their current job postings on their websites. Are they jobs you would be interested in doing? What are the qualifications for this position or these positions? Will you be qualified for this position when you graduate? Do they have internships for current students? That's a big one, right? So go on their websites and become familiar with what positions they have available. Become familiar with what jobs they have available. Try out the search function on Indeed, Charity Village, Google Jobs. One I would also put in there is LinkedIn. I don't know why I didn't put that in there. And try different keywords like work from abroad, work from home, right? And see what comes up. You might actually see positions come up that you probably never even knew existed, right? So I can't think of examples right now, but there are times that when you start to get into that rabbit hole of searching, you're actually going to see things pop up where you're like, what does this mean? Or that sounds interesting, but I've never heard of that, right? And then also check out job postings on social media, Facebook, Instagram, etc. So don't just use Facebook and Instagram to be able to see or to stalk people. I shouldn't have said that. Don't just use Instagram and Facebook just to check people out, because we do not stalk here. But check out people actually post job postings on Facebook and Instagram. Now, because I'm of a certain age bracket, I only know about Facebook and Instagram. I know there is a plethora of other social media platforms out there. I don't know about them. This is all I know about and I'm familiar with. If there are others, use those. That's fine. But especially Instagram, I find that a lot of job postings and job fairs, they tend to post on there. And the reason is because it's free advertisement for them there, as opposed to having to pay for Indeed or Charity Village or any of these other websites. And sometimes they get a lot more traction because more people are on social media more often, right? So another tip could be when you are looking for these job postings and you see these postings on there. Now, remember, this is also for your career. So even if you're not interested in working there now, it's good to become familiar with what's out there. Start liking and following those pages, those company pages, so that their information will come up on your feed as well. And that kind of goes into networking. So there's the networking where like you attend events and you can cold call companies, but then there's the unconventional networking. So kind of like I kind of touched on this a second ago. Like and follow the social media of companies that you're interested in. Reach out to companies through social media messengers. Participate or volunteer in events thrown by companies you would like to work for. So charity events, toy drives, runs for cancer research. I talked about Scotiabank Half Marathon. They tend to raise money for different things. There's the Walk for Cancer, Run for Cancer, right? But also when you attend or volunteer at these events, post about it and tag the company. Let the company see that you're participating as well. People take notice of stuff like that, right? So that's another way to um, that is another way to network. But when in doubt, Google it, look it up, right? So you're not sure what exactly a business analyst does, go on Google and type in, what does a business analyst do? Okay. If it is that you are not, oh, actually, you know what? Besides Google, as of late, I have gotten into TikTok. As I'm talking about social media platforms, I have gotten into TikTok. And one thing I am noticing on TikTok is a lot of people in their careers are going on there and talking about day in the life videos, day in the life in the office, things that they do, what they like about their jobs, what they don't like about their jobs. Utilize that, right? You don't always have to be reading all the time. Sometimes you can watch videos about things like this just for research purposes, right? But besides that, Google it. All right, so now is the time for questions. So for the recorded portion, I am going to stop the video so that I can hear the questions. However, just before you guys ask your questions, just a reminder that this video is actually going to be posted on Quirkus as well as on the Trinity Student Services YouTube page. Yeah, sorry, it took me a second to remember. Also, you can email me if it is, let me go back to my email really quickly. You can email me as well if you have any questions. You're more than welcome to send me. There must have been an easier way to do that. You're more than welcome to send me an email if it is that you do have any questions about what I talked about looking for careers, looking for jobs, work study positions, off-campus positions. I do have another video as well from another session I ran where I talked about the process of applying and how to do that. But besides that, just hold on. You'll be able to ask your questions in 1 minute.